Hey everyone, I'm Kai Martini. Welcome back to the Talk of Fan podcast. And today is such a great episode, and he has been doing amazing things that I've been looking forward to diving into. And we have Ruben Gonzalez joining us today. He has been in 4 Olympics in 4 different decades, which is crazy. Five best-selling books, 300,000 sold, 100 plus Fortune 500 clients, and 500 plus major keynotes in 5 continents. In school, he was always the last kid picked to play sports, but he didn't end up taking any sports or playing sports at lunch until he was 21. 4 years and a bunch of broken bones later, I'm sure. He was competing in the Calgary Winter Olympics, and he has broken arm he just showed us. But he was in the Vancouver Olympics at age 47 and became the first person to ever compete in 4 Winter Olympics, each in different decades. Since 2002, Ruben has spoken for over 100 of the Fortune 500 companies. His best-selling books have sold over 300,000 copies and have been translated to over 10 languages. Ruben's incredible story takes people's excuses away, fills them with belief and inspiration to take their challenges and to fight for their goals and dreams. I'm so looking forward to hearing about his stories and Olympics, books, and much more. Like, he has literally so much going on. More than I can ever say in my life, but more than I actually do my 17 years of living. But thank you so much, Ruben, for joining us today. It's such an honor to have you.
Hey, you're off to a great start. At 17, I was clueless. So no telling what the future holds for you, Kylie.
Thank you. And to dive off a little bit, like in sports, like, do you think like starting a sport, later in life, you start basically playing, training for a sport at 21, like, do you think starting a sport later in life has kind of pushed you to kind of train, for the Olympics?
I When I was 10, I saw the Olympics on TV for the first time. And I love to read adventure books. I read 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Around the World in 80 Days, all these books about kids that led adventurous lives. And so I was always looking for my adventure. And when I saw the Olympics on TV, I thought, that's what I want to do. But I was always the last kid picked, for kickball and things like that in the neighborhood. So I didn't believe it was possible, and I didn't do anything. My dad, after a while, he said, Ruben, you like to read books. If you'll read some biographies, if you study the lives of great people, you'll figure out what works, what doesn't work in life, because success leaves clues. And I started reading them, and I realized they were all basically adventure stories too, right? And it was always they had a dream, they went through a struggle, they had a victory. It was always like that, and they were perseverant. That's what they all had in common. They refused to quit, and they were hard heads. My mom always called me a hard head, so I thought maybe I have a little bit of what it takes. And I made a decision at 12 years old. If quitting is the end of your dream, and perseverance, at least you still have a shot. There's no guarantees, but at least you're still in the game. It's a no-brainer. From today on, Ruben doesn't quit anything. I made a promise to myself. And success is a decision, okay? Sooner or later, you just get mad and you just take a decision and you start doing things that you weren't going to do before. When I was 21, I played soccer. I was born in Argentina, so I played soccer all my life. I have good skills, but I'm a slowpoke, so that means I end up in the bench. When I was 21, I saw the Olympics again, and in my mind, Olympic athletes were bigger than life. They were like Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Just muscles, and that was my vision of them, my picture of them. And I'm watching the '84 Olympics, and I see this little 5 foot tall figure skater, about 110 pounds soaking wet, and he wins the gold medal in figure skating, Scott Hamilton. And so when I saw him win, it just totally shattered that vision that I had of what Olympians were like. And he gave me hope. I thought, if that little guy can win, I can at least play. I'll be in the next ones. It's a done deal. I just got to find a sport. And so I went looking for sports, and I picked the luge. Even though I lived in Houston, Texas, which doesn't get much ice and snow, I picked the luge because I thought, it looks like a lot of broken bones, maybe a lot of quitters, and I just won't quit. Perseverance is my superpower, you could say, right? And so you have to go somewhere where you are using your strengths. And I was able to make it, by the skin on my teeth. I made it 4 times, and I'm trying to make one more to be the first one to do, the oldest Winter Olympian ever. So I just came back from Austria a couple of days ago, had a freak accident, got hit by another sled, which should never happen, and dislocated my elbow. and just kind of put a kink in the plans. But my hope is to be back on the tracks by January, because I gotta give it my all, right, and see if I can do that fifth one.
Definitely. Like, like the first thing that came to mind, like, have you ever seen Eddie the Eagle, the movie with Hugh Jackman and Taryn? Like, I forget his last name, it's like with E. Have you ever seen that movie?
Yeah, yeah. In fact, my first Olympics was Calgary, 1988. And that was
Oh,
his first
really?
Olympics. I actually met him over there. His glasses, I've never seen glasses so thick in my life. I met him, we talked for about 5 minutes. That was it. But the Jamaican bobsledders, if you've ever seen Cool Runnings, that was their Olympics too. And I'm buddies with one of those guys. But you were going to ask something. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, it's fine. But like, I feel like once you were saying all those things, I literally, dogged that movie because like you're like the way your experiences of growing up has kind of reminded me of like that Eddie's experiences and skiing and everything really just immediately hit like, oh my God, like your story is like so much, connected to his. Because of course I love Eddie the Eagle with me knowing I'm the biggest Hugh Jackman fan, so of course I've seen that movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, like the first thing that came to mind was that movies of your stories are so similar. But like what was, like life like for you kind of growing up playing sports and being the last one picked and stuff? Like what was it kind of like for you?
Well, I was born in Argentina, came to the States when I was 6. We were in New York for a couple of years. My dad was a chemical engineer, and we moved to Houston for a while, then Venezuela. I was an oil brat basically, and and I never felt it was a racist thing. But since in school, kids, if there's something different about you, that gives them an excuse to pick on you, right? Especially the bullies. And so I was a kid, didn't talk to anybody because I didn't speak English yet. And then I spoke it funny, and I had different customs, right? And so I was a target. And so that for elementary and middle school and high school, actually, all three of them were tough, right? Because I was on the receiving end of all that. And in high school, I played a lot of soccer, but in clubs because our high school didn't have a soccer team. And then my dad always said the books you read and the people you associate with, those two things will determine whether you reach your goals or not. And it's really important to associate with people who have already done what you want to do. And you're already doing it with your aunt. She's in broadcasting, she was your inspiration. And I'm sure she's constantly giving you tips. And if you have a question, that's who you go to. And so the shortcut to success is find somebody that's done what you want to do and follow in their footsteps. And so that's what I've always done. And you pick up whoever you hang around with, you pick up their habits. So if they're if they're doing drugs or smoking or just partying or not studying, you're going to pick up those habits. And no matter how good a student you are, you're going to go downhill. But if you hang out around the A students, for example, right, or the athletes or whatever you want to do, then you'll pick up their habits, and then you start moving towards that direction. And so that's I learned that along the way. And then by college, I was being very focused about hanging around, people that would help me get where I want to go. And then you disassociate yourself from the naysayers, right? Who do you think you are? You'll never do that. All the whiners and complainers and the bullies, basically, you disassociate because they will never understand you, and you will never understand them. You're not gonna convince them. So don't waste any time with them. But they have power. Those people have power to create doubt in your heart and get you to quit on your own dream, or quit before you even get started. And that's why you have to stay away from them and then hang around the winners. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. Like that's so awkward because like what he said, like hanging around the people that I really, whatever they're A students or athletes, like whatever they do, like you will learn their habits. Like with growing up, like we mentioned before we started recording, with growing up with two journalists in my family, I grew up with that habit of, being a journalist per se. And I remember like when I saw both of them a couple weeks ago, I remember like chirping their ear off asking questions. And because I
Yeah.
love, asking questions, as you can tell with doing the podcast. Like, of course, with being the podcast for 2 years, I love asking questions, which I hate a little bit. Don't get me wrong, I do hate it a little bit, but sometimes I'm like, okay, well, I kind of do love it time I fall over that, ask so many questions. But then, like you said, like hang around the people that you want to be around and learn habits. Because of course, growing up, I learned personally, you hang around the people that you want to learn or grow up habits of. Because I was one of those kids that grew up habits from being around somebody. So it's really, really the best thing to really hang out with somebody normal and hang out with somebody and grow up their habits. But, like, when did you kinda have to do or train to kind of go to the Olympics?
So I went to well, I see Scott Hamilton, this figure skater. I get all excited. I went to the library. I got a big book about the Olympics. I looked at the summer sports. It took me 5 minutes to realize you have to be Superman to do any of these sports. There's no way. And my nickname in high school was Bulldog because I was tenacious. I was already getting a reputation for, excuse me, for being tenacious. So then I started looking at the winter sports, and I thought, wait a minute. I'm about to put together a plan for the next 4 years. It probably makes sense to base the plan on my strengths. My strengths not athleticism, it's perseverance. I'm Bulldog. So that's how I picked the luge. And I had it down to ski jump. I could have been an eagle, but no. Ski jump, bobsled, or luge. Okay. I'd never skied before, so ski jump, that would have been suicide. So that was out. Bobsled, where you're going to find 3 other nuts that want to do that. And luge is something I could do by myself. I didn't know where the track was. And so here comes the third thing my dad always said. And these were the main ones. The books you read, people you hang around with. And the third one is life is tough. Okay. It's a series of struggles. And it's just like when you watch the weather, when they're doing the weather on TV, they're always showing the cold fronts. Okay. Well, it's like that. It's like the cold fronts are challenges that you're going through. And so if you have to cross a minefield, and my dad used to say, you're going to have to cross lots of minefields through life. Well, it probably makes sense to follow somebody who's already crossed it. So always look for that person that crossed the minefield. And let me ask you something real quick. You have been doing what I preach everybody to do. When I'm speaking professionally, I talk about this. And I get pushback from people, from adults. That says, well, those people are so busy. I don't want to impose. And do you think you're imposing on your aunt when you ask her questions about broadcasting, or do you think she actually is kind of a little bit flattered that you actually want to follow in her footsteps?
I think it's a little bit both. I think it's a
Uh-huh.
little bit both to be quite honest with you. Like me and her basically like we always remain close. So she was always, flattered, letting me ask questions because growing up I was a very shy kid. So like, I didn't know what exactly I wanted to do in my life. But every time I asked her questions or her husband questions about journalism and stuff, like every time I ask them those questions, they really have like a big smile on their face when I ask them. Well,
Yeah.
I also see like, okay, well, why you ask me journalism questions on that work? I mean, I see a little bit of both in them, but
uh,
I'm more of a see like most excited, flattered than like why you
uh,
ask me
I
journalism.
see. Well, when people say that to me, oh, I don't want to impose. Here's what I tell them. How people, they always say, oh, she's successful, but she's not happy. Or he's successful, but he's not fulfilled. He's always looking for something else. Feels like he's not satisfied. Well, it's because success, everybody thinks it's the gold medal, but success is the silver medal. The gold medal is called significance. That means you helped somebody else succeed, right? You became that journalist, and now you show up, and they helped you, and that's what fills that little hole in your heart because you made a difference. You created a ripple effect of success. You made the world a better place. And so when you approach a mentor, as long as your intention is to take action, right? To act on what they teach you, not just to be an eternal learner, take action, then you owe it to them to ask them because you're going to help them get that gold medal. They'll help you get the silver, and you just might make a best friend. And so that gets them to understand that and take that first step. It's if you intend to just learn forever but not take any action, then don't bug them. Then that would be imposing. But otherwise, you're flattering them. Chances are, when your aunt was growing up, she if she was the first journalist and broadcaster in the family, nobody else understood her very much. They didn't understand, and so she felt a little bit like a black sheep or an outsider, And finally she probably got tired of explaining because they weren't going to understand anyway. And here you show up 20 years later and you want to be like her. It's like, man, you're a breath of fresh air. And so that's what I tell people. But to answer your question, I went to Lake Placid, and usually you learn how to luge when you're 8, 9, 10 years old. And when you turn 19, you have to start. You're no longer a junior, so you have to go from a higher start. But the junior starts pretty low on the track. There's a men's start, ladies and double start, and then junior start, and there's a tourist start. If you go to Lake Placid, you can pay to take a luge run. And so these kids, they start when they're young, and it's like a 10-year process where they're gently, slowly moving up the mountain. They hardly ever get hurt, and they're learning and getting better and getting confident. Me, I showed up at 21, and they tried to talk me out of it. I said, look, if you want to do it at your age, you want to do it just 4 years, it's brutal. 9 out of 10 people quit. Well, I started smiling. I thought, this works right into my plan. This is perfect. And they said, one more thing, expect to break some bones. And I thought, great. And anyways, but I went, and they were going to have to cram those 10 years into just 2 years. They said, you're going to get hurt a lot. Okay. You will break bones because we have to do it so fast, because the last 2 years you have to be competing internationally in the World Cup circuit to try to get these World Cup points, which determine your ranking. And back then, top 50 got to go, and 51 watches it on TV. And then it became top 40. And this next one's going to be top 25. I've never been in the top 25. But I'm sliding better than ever, and I'm still learning. I'm still learning at 61, okay? Because I've become more coachable, and where before, when coach told me something, I resisted it, all right? And I learned everything the hard way. And one of my first coaches says, your nickname shouldn't have been Bulldog. It should have been, because you are half Bulldog and half Mule, because you're such a hardhead. You didn't need to get hurt so much. And so now I've become totally coachable, where my attitude now is, if coach says, shave your hair, and shave your head and put on lipstick, that's gonna make you faster, I'm gonna do it. I just trust them now. And I'm getting better and better. And I need to continue getting better and better, because I'm not there yet, but I'm going for it because I got a shot. Coach says it's possible. That's the first thing I ask them. Is it possible, or am I just, or am I just nuts? He goes, you follow this plan and it's possible. There's no guarantees, right? I could break a leg the day before the Olympics and I'm out. But there's no guarantees in life. But if it's possible, and it's something that I want to do, why not? I'll regret it if I don't go for it.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Like you said, you're 61, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely crazy that you're still doing that at your age, at 61 years old. Like, that's amazing. Like, not a lot of people are still doing what they're doing at 61 years old. So I applaud you for that. But like you said, it'll really, you always have to have a plan and a backup plan to what you want to do, because and not everything is gonna work out in your eyes. Like, even if you want to do something in Olympics, you might break a million bones, and one of them might not let you.
Oh, I don't want to break a million bones. That's too many.
Not let you do ever again. So it's literally just having a backup plan to really what you want to do. Like, maybe I can teach people to go to the Olympics, even though I couldn't because I broke a bone. Who knows? But
Michael Jordan, the basketball player, he had a really great quote, and is exactly how I feel about it right now. He said, I can handle not winning, but I can't handle not trying, right? I won't be able to live with myself. And so I can handle not making it to the Olympics, but I can't handle knowing that I didn't give it my best. This is an opportunity to become the oldest Winter Olympian in history, and the only one to ever do 5 Olympics in 5 different decades. I mean, that's nuts. And so, man, I have to go for it. Otherwise, I will be sick inside, and I'll get all grumpy the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's the same.
A grumpy 61-year-old. You don't want that.
Yeah, I'm just saying, here on my end, even if I might not make it to the journalism industry in 5 years, as long as I'm trying and working hard, that's the most important thing. At least I work my best, working my butt off 24 hours a day, even though I'm sick and tired. That's the most important thing. But before we head off, I want to ask you, you came out with 5 best-selling books, The Courage to Succeed, Fight for Your Dream, and Dream, Struggle, and Victory. What was kind of your mindset when writing these books?
Well, what's your question again? My mindset?
What was kind of your mindset when you were writing your 5 books?
Nobody's ever asked me that before. That's a good question. Um, Something similar that I've gotten asked before, but it's kind of rare too, is like, what was your motivation for each one? And I had a different motivation for each Olympics. Okay, the first one is I just want to be one of those guys, right? But the second one, I wanted to have the Germans who are the best to respect me. I wanted to earn their respect. Each one had a different one, different motivation. With the books, the first one, I fell into this business. Believe it or not, I'm an introvert. Okay. You get me talking about Olympics or personal development, how to be your best. It's like Clark Kent turns into Superman for a little while, but I'm really Clark Kent. And so I never took a speech class in my life. The thought of being a speaker never crossed my mind. I used to sell copiers in downtown Houston. And about a month before the Salt Lake City Olympics, which was 2002, this little kid in my neighborhood, a little fifth grader, he says, "Hey, Ruben, when you come back from the Olympics, will you be my show and tell project in school?" I said, "Sure, why not?" And I pictured show and tell day, it's probably 5 minutes for each kid. So that's easy. So I took the sled, the helmet, the Olympic torch. I thought, I'm finally going to win a gold medal in something, right? Even if it's against a bunch of fifth graders. Well, the principal, he takes me to this big room. There's 200 fifth graders sitting there. And he says, "You got 45 minutes. Have at them." They turned into an assembly, but they didn't tell me. I almost had a heart attack. And I said a little prayer. I said, "God, what do I do now?" And what I felt I needed to do is just tell them your story and give them some tips how they can make their dream come true. And I did. I didn't die or anything. It was great. It was actually fun. And on the way to the car, the principal's going nuts. "You need to do this for a living. You're better than the people we pay." And I said, "What do you mean? You get paid for show and tell?" And he goes, "No, the speaking profession." Man, I was clueless. And so I quit my job. I started speaking professionally and building a business. And then I realized I'm a good storyteller, but I don't know how to build this business. I need a mentor. I need a coach. I need somebody to follow. And I found a man who lived in Houston, who was very successful. He had fruit on the trees, right? He wasn't a theorist. He'd done the work and he was getting, fruit out of it. And as he made me jump through hoops to make sure that I was going to actually be a worker, not just a learner. And when we finally met, the first thing out of his mouth was, "I don't care if you're a 10-time Olympian, unless you write a book, no one's going to take you seriously because the author is considered the authority of the subject. You wrote the book on it." He just kept going on and on. And I told him, "Jim, I can't write a book. Okay, impossible. I made C's in English, or I made C's in everything. My parents celebrated if I brought a C." And he said, "You got a great story. You write it down like it's a letter to your best friend. That kind of English, real normal. And then we'll give it to some A students. They clean it up for you. That's just grammar." I thought, "Oh my gosh, I didn't think about that." He goes, "Yeah, it's called editing. All right. So shut up and sit down." That's how, but see, everybody we tend to build this case against us why we can't do something. I had this incredible case built up that was logical. It was an open and shut case why Ruben can't write a book. And then he said, "No, you just write a letter and we get some A students." And so that's why you follow a mentor, because they take care of all that negativity. He just says, "Just do this, this, and this. What's your next problem?" And so that led to another one and led to another one. I did one with my daughter after the Vancouver Olympics, the 2010. She was 9 years old, and we homeschooled both of our kids. And we were having a daddy-daughter date right after the Olympics, and she'd met a bunch of my friends there at the Olympics. And she says, "Dad, I want to write a book." I said, "Okay, well, what's your book?" I want to interview 100 Olympic athletes and ask them how'd you get your dream? How'd you overcome your struggles? And what did it feel like when you got your victory, right? And victory didn't mean necessarily you won a medal. It could be you made it. And I kept putting her off because I was busy, and she kept pushing. "Come on, Dad, I want to be 10 years old. I want to be an author." "Oh, all right, fine." Well, long story short, we interviewed about 80 of them, and the best 50 made the book. And Scott Hamilton, that figure skater, he actually wrote the foreword for it. And we just did one with my son. And so there's many different ways that you can do a book, and you will not believe when you finish your book how people are more impressed that I'm an author than I'm an Olympian. I'll tell you, it's a lot harder to be an Olympian, but it elevates you and it opens up doors, and you make a little bit of money too if you start selling them.
True that. Like that's awesome. Your daughter wanted to write a book at 9, 10 years old. That's incredible. Like I would never have wrote a book or anything at 9 or 10 years old. I was never that kid. I was so shy that I could have done it. But like to be speaking, like if you see me years ago, I would never be a speaker in my entire life. Never. Like I was no never. I
But you're
speak.
growing. You're pushing yourself, you're growing. And whether you end up, look, being on TV may not be the best thing for you. When you start, when you got a couple of hundred of these episodes down, and you're even more experienced, and maybe by then you've written a few books. Now, who knows? You might be a speaker. You might be a coach where you've learned all these tips from all these other people that you've interviewed, and now you're coaching other people. It's going to open up doors where it might even be your own business. But
Mhm.
see, when you put yourself through the struggle, which is what you're doing now, right? And what I'm doing now, we have a dream that you're really excited about and you're willing to work hard for, whether you make it or not. Whether you make it or not, I want to make it. But you know what? Even if I don't, I will have had to dig so deep inside that I will find some God-given gifts I didn't even know I had. And now I got those for the rest of my life because you're a different person now than you were 2 years ago because of what you've been doing, right? You're growing. You're growing. And so just keep doing it.
Yes, that's exactly what like I was like what I was exactly thinking growing up. Because of course, like growing and having a podcast, like I would hate being on TV. Like the first time I was on TV, I was, scared for my life. Like I was literally scared for my life. But now
And
if
makeup. And you got
yeah,
to put on makeup. You got to get up at 4 in the morning if you're in the news. I mean, shoot, podcast a lot more fun if you ask me.
but like even like once I did more TV interviews and interviews from reporters and stuff, I'm like, this is exactly what I want to do for a living. Like this is like, and plus my one of my favorite TV shows is the morning show with Reese Witherspoon and Jennifer Aniston. So
Uh-huh.
that's one of my favorite TV shows, and that's like I don't know why, but I love that show so much. It really is maybe a better person in journalist for what I
Yeah.
really want to, pursue. But other than that, like I really want to I think that was like a perfect way to end the podcast episode. I think you were seriously awesome and your experiences, everything will be so helpful for our viewers. And we'll definitely have to do a part two on everything you're doing. Thank you so much, Ruben, for coming on. Your work is seriously terrific. And thank you everyone for listening. And thank you. I hope everyone enjoyed this episode and see you guys soon. And thank you, Ruben, for coming on.
Thanks for having me. That was fun.
Of course. Have a great rest of your day.